right, I'm joined by my colleague Alex Sear to break down the 2025 New York City Marathon Elite Fields, which were literally just announced moments ago. Alex, I feel like it was just yesterday that we talked about the Chicago Marathon Elite Fields. Oh, because it was.
I haven't even changed my shirt.
There we have it. We're going to break down the men's and women's races in detail. We're going to talk about the top Americans in each field as well. We're going to break down the storylines that we see emerging here for the November Marathon Major in New York City, which we will be at and we will be covering live in great detail the entire week leading up to that perhaps best marathon in the world. We'll talk about the men's side in a moment. Let's start with the women's side. First big question for you, Alex. What's the biggest storyline on the women's side of this elite field?
Okay, I was struggling between two, and I'm going to pick this one because I feel like it's more recurring and I've become so invested in the last 3 or 4 years. The biggest rivalry in women's distance running happens in the marathon. It's a 4-year-long rivalry, and we're going to see the next chapter in New York City. It's the Sharon Lokedi versus Hellen Obiri throwdown. Chapter 7? I think chapter 7. Let's let me give you a quick lowdown or a rundown of how these two athletes have competed over the years. So both are Kenyan-born athletes training in the United States, and both have had an incredible amount of success over the marathon majors and at the Olympics. Their rivalry begins in 2022-ish. Sharon Lokedi wins the New York City Marathon. Hellen Obiri finishes 6th, so not that close that year. The next year, Hellen Obiri wins her first New York City Marathon. Lokedi comes in 3rd. The next year, Obiri beats Lokedi in a sprint at the Boston Marathon. Later that year, Obiri knocks Lokedi off the Olympic podium to claim bronze. Later that year, 2024, we're still in 2024, Obiri finishes 2nd at the New York City Marathon. Lokedi doesn't run it. Obiri claims a silver medal. And then in 2025, this year, earlier, a few months ago, Lokedi comes back, beats Obiri at the Boston Marathon in a really tightly fought race. And so this is chapter 6 or 7 of what I think is the best rivalry maybe in marathoning period right now.
Yeah, it's an incredible matchup. I think that a masterstroke of elite athlete planning on the part of the New York Roadrunners for this one. Lokedi, she ran for University of Kansas, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. She's been in the U.S. a long time. She's 31 years old now. She's been in the U.S. going on 13, 14 years now, and is a mainstay. She's an Under Armour athlete. She's the only Under Armour athlete keeping the light on right now.
She's keeping that brand alive in marathoning, single-handedly,
in terms of
almost.
elite marathon running and putting out a super shoe and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And a fierce competitor, really fun person to watch race, really dynamic personality as well at the press conferences before and after these major marathons. And of course, Hellen Obiri, she's like a boss. We were there in Boston in the last couple of years, and she is quite the character in the press conferences. She commands the room, and she's an on athlete, so she's always wearing something interesting on her feet as well. But they have totally battled the last 2 years in Boston, and New York is a similar type of course, right? Where it's hilly. There's a lot of turns. I always call it the paved cross-country course as a marathon. You don't generally see fast times in New York. In fact, the course record is only 2:22:31, which was set way back in 2003 by Margaret Okeo, a Kenyan athlete. That is a really, really old course record. I think it might be the oldest course record of all the marathon majors right now. So be curious to see if that one gets broken. We should also mention Sheila Chepkirui of Kenya, who won the race last year, is coming back to defend her title. Smart move. Mm-hmm. She ran really well last year. She could get between these two rivals and repeat as well. So my second burning question for you, Alex, is: do you think there's going to be finally a fast New York City Marathon? Will we see sub 222?
You almost have to expect it. There's a reason no one's beaten it in the last 20 plus years, despite the technological advancements of the super shoes. And it's that New York is a tough race. But at this point, we have some of the very best athletes in the world who keep getting better by the year. Something's just got to give. I feel like this start list is a typical New York start list. It kind of self-selects for the athletes who are better racers than time trialers. Obiri, for example, Lokedi, for example. We're not seeing a 2:11 runner like Tigges Desefa or a 2:13 marathoner like Sifan Hassan on the start list. And I think there's a reason for that. New York lends itself to more tactical racing. And so if that's the case, it's possible that despite the talent on the women's start list, the race is 1 in 2:25. But it only takes one athlete to take it out hard, and then they will crush the record. I think a 2:22 on the world stage in 2025 is kind of pedestrian.
Yeah, totally. I think so too. Even on a course like New York, where it's a really difficult course and it's tactical. There's no pacers in New York. New York and Boston are the two races each year, the two major marathons where they do not have pacers. It's what's called championship style racing, just like you would see in the Olympics. There's no group of hired pacers at the front to create, to set the tone and pull everyone to a faster time. So Lokedi's got a 2:17.22 personal best. Sheila Chepkirui 2:17.29, and Hellen Obiri 2:17.41. Obiri and Lokedi, that was from Boston last year. So both of those, or this year rather, both of those athletes are capable of running fast on a grindy, gritty, up and down, hilly, turny course, right? So
do you want to hear my hot take?
Yes, I definitely do.
My hot take is that this record will be broken this year, and it will be broken by several people, including at least one American.
Whoa. Okay. Well, we'll get to that in a second here. Let's pivot to that right now. Let's talk about the Americans in this field. I would say beyond the Lokedi-Obiri rivalry at the front, the dynamic and deep bench of American women running in New York is, I think, maybe the number 2 storyline here, at least on the women's side. And so it's going to be highlighted by the American marathon record holder, Emily Sisson, who's finally making her debut in New York after she, I believe, was supposed to run the 2020 incarnation of the New York City Marathon, but of course it was canceled due to COVID. So she's finally making her debut in New York. New York, a New Balance event. Emily Sisson, a New Balance athlete. Synergies, Alex. I can feel it. Let's talk a little bit about the women's side. Who do you think is going to emerge victorious in terms of the top American runner in New York, and where will she place?
So Sisson is your top contender. I think at this point, she has a pretty strong case for being the top American long distance runner in the game currently. She's got both the half marathon and marathon records. I think that, hey, I mean, if we're going by personal bests, she's not far behind our other top contenders, Chepkirui, Obiri, Lokedi. And on a good day, we could see Sisson climbing on the podium. I don't think that that's out of the question. I think for Sisson to win the New York City Marathon might be a bit of a stretch, but I would not. Well, what do you think? Do you think there's a shot?
Well, an American woman has won this race in the last 10 years, right? So it is possible, and she is the 5th fastest person on paper to start on the women's elite field. So she's top 5, and it is a tactical race. She's a decent tactical runner. It'll be interesting to see how she does.
Yeah. I think she's the only athlete out of the American contingent who stands a chance at hitting the podium. I think the other athletes there are looking for a breakthrough. We have like a bunch of interesting storylines. I think many of them will have the chance to break their personal best. Sarah Hall might be an exception to that. She's a few years removed from her personal best. Of course, she's the 3rd fastest marathoner in U.S. history. And so for her to run a PR, she would have to go under 2:20:32. And so she's perhaps, well, she's one of the most experienced runners in the field. You never know what she can pull off. I don't think she had the day that she wanted in Boston, and she's probably seeking some revenge. And then when you go down the list, there are a couple interesting characters. I was surprised to see Susanna Sullivan on the start list, that Brooks athlete who's also a teacher, which is kind of cool. The reason I was surprised is that she's also on the world's team. And so she'll be looking at a roughly 6 week turnaround between the World Championship and the New York City Marathon. She's not the only person on the start list to do this, but they're few and far between. We have Fiona O'Keefe, who we might remember from the U.S. Olympic trials in 2024. She's a Puma athlete. There's a storyline around her. So she's an athlete who received quite a bit of flack for her year in 2024, qualified for the Olympics, went to the Olympics, presumably injured, and ran the marathon, started the marathon, ran a few minutes, and then dropped out. There was some speculation as to why she would have done that. Money was probably involved, maybe contract things. We're not quite sure, but that was all speculation. But she's back racing New York. Molly Seidel, on her first start list since 2023. So she had, you saw this, Michael. It was a very severe patellar injury.
It was maybe only a couple of weeks before the U.S. Olympic marathon trials last spring in Orlando. She scratched, and the details of the injury kind of gruesome. Patellar tear to the tendon and a break to the patellar bone. That's your knee?
Yeah, that second part really sucks. So I've heard of ruptured patellar tendons. That happens every now and then. That's pretty severe in itself. But a break to the patellar, to the patella, to the bone, is quite rare, and it's really hard to recover from. So the patella, here's my human kinetics knowledge that I rarely apply these days. So I'm excited about this. Patella is a sesamoid bone, which means it's not directly attached to your skeleton, which means less blood supply, longer time of recovery. Makes sense that it took her 2 years. She took these 2 years to get her MBA. Good on her. And I don't know. I've always cheered for Seidel. She's kind of like wears her heart on her sleeve type of racer. So I'm excited to see her, and I'll be rooting for her.
She's a cool character. Another surprising turn in her career is she was with Puma for a while, Saucony before that, and in our sleuthing, in our prep for this chat, we discovered that she parted ways with Puma this summer. So by all accounts, I mean, like a little bit of Instagram digging, I don't think she's got a major running brand sponsor right now. She used to work with Morton as well. She may still work with them. I don't know, but I think she might be sponsorless right now, or we'll find out in New York. Maybe she's going to show up with brand X. And I mean, an incredible athlete. She's got a great social media. She doesn't post super often. She takes sort of time away from both Strava and Instagram from time to time. I think probably wisely so, because it must be pretty overwhelming when you're an elite athlete. Incredible taste, man. In our Instagram sleuthing, I noted this. We're going a little off topic here, but I noted she's got a really nice turntable. She's got a project turntable. She's also got the exact same dining room table pendant lamp by Herman Miller that I have in my house.
Wow.
So I like to say Molly Seidel has really good taste.
Or at least she has the same taste as you.
I'm not sure what that means, but all right, moving along here. We should also note Annie Frisbie, who had a nice breakthrough in Boston. She's a 2:23 runner. Sarah Vaughn is in the mix, 2:23 as well. Really strong marathon runner. And your pal, your friend, the Scotswoman, Eilish McColgan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She is going to run New York.
Yeah. So my brief Eilish McColgan story, I'll keep it short because I've told it on this podcast before. I did a 10K, a road 10K in New York called the McCurdy's Micro Race Series, which was just a fast 10K around a lake. And the the event was geared towards their marathon, which left about 18 people doing the 10K, which seemed to be myself, Eilish McColgan, and 16 locals from upstate New York, which I can't remember the name of the village, but it's where Mark Zuckerberg is from. Zuckerberg was not at the race. So I met Eilish McColgan.
He does like to run a 5K, though.
He does. I was thankful that he wasn't there. But Eilish McColgan was there, and it was her tune-up for the London Marathon, which was her very first ever marathon. Of course, McColgan, who's won the Commonwealth Games on the track, is a very accomplished 5,000 and 10,000 meter runner on the track. She ran a debut time of 2:24 earlier this year, and this is her second kick at the can. So I'm excited to see what she can do. She's an athlete with a lot of speed. If I can recall correctly, in London, I think her second half hurt her a little bit. And so we'll see if she can dial that in and go as close to 2:20 as possible. So I don't know, Michael. I think so. We recorded the Chicago the Chicago start list reaction pod yesterday, and the women's field was all doom and gloom because the main story was Ruth Chepkirui not being there, obviously because of the provisional doping suspension and doping infraction. This is the opposite here in New York. I love this women's field. I think there are many storylines. I think the Americans all crowded towards New York. And I don't know. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air after, I don't know, what might not be as exciting in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we led with the women's field. I think it's got the most dynamic storylines, certainly two top storylines in terms of that Lokedi Obiri head-to-head duel that we might be able to see. Hopefully we do. Hopefully we get that, hopefully they come into Central Park side by side, not like in Boston, they weren't giving each other an inch. Neither person was Lokedi was getting mad at Obiri because she wasn't taking any of the headwind and the pacing in the last couple of miles. I mean, this is great. I'd love to know. And when we're in New York, we'll have to ask at the press conference, what's the behind the scenes? Is there a relationship? Is there a friendship? They texting each other? Mm-hmm. Is this all just kind of they leave it on the race course and they're pals otherwise? Or is there no relationship? Or do they actively dislike each other? Curious to hear. And we will make sure to ask that as well. So let's pivot to the men's race here, which is not without its storylines. And I want to know from you what you think the biggest storyline is on the men's side.
So on the men's side, I think New York will be a manifestation of what we're seeing in the all-timers list. To me, there's a storyline forming on the list of all-timers, and that is that there are, let's call them 3 untouchables when we're talking about the best male marathoners in the world. They're not untouchable anymore because Eliud Kipchoge in a race right now or Kenenisa Bekele in a race right now, they get beat. But in terms of legacy,
because they're my age,
because they're your age,
because Kipchoge is 65 years old. So, it's understandable.
Yes, it's like playing ball against Michael Jordan right now. Though I bet you Jordan would refuse to admit that any current player in their prime is better than he is right now. But that's a separate story. I think there are 3 athletes in male marathoning who are considered the untouchables, and they are Kenenisa Bekele, Eliud Kipchoge, and the late Kelvin Kiptum, who's got the fastest time in history. After that, there's a small number of athletes who are trying to ascend onto that 3-person podium, and none of them have. There's John Career, who's racing Chicago. There's Cissé Lema, who raced Boston last year, who's been hurt recently. And then there are a slew of athletes who are on this start line vying for supremacy of the, I don't know what to call them, the second-rate legends. That's not really fair. Well, it's not really fair to them. And then they're still building their legacy.
Let's go Mount Rushmore here. Mount Rushmore famously has 4 heads, which gives you your podium plus 1. This is the 4th head. This is the plus 1, and we're looking at, and you're, I think, specifically talking about Benson Kipruto, the Kenyan.
Yep.
And Evans Chebet, also Kenyan.
And maybe even Alexander Mutiso Munyao as he continues to build his legacy over the next few years.
Yeah.
And perhaps a few more. So let's break it down athlete by athlete, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Benson Kipruto seems to be the class of the field. He's the 6th fastest marathoner of all time. He was the bronze medalist at the most recent Olympics. And to me, here's the most curious and fun stat. He's got wins at 3 of the 6 major marathons, none of them being New York City. He hasn't done New York. He's got wins in Boston, Tokyo, and Chicago. And so I feel like he's quietly hunting for his own 6 golden stars. Could you imagine someone winning all 6 major marathons? I mean
that was Kipchoge's idea for the longest time, right? And then Boston didn't really go well. He's never come over to New York to run. And he's doing Sydney for the first time because Sydney is now a major as of this year. He's running Sydney this year. So I think the Kipper probably missed the moment with New York. I think New York had to have, I think if Boston had gone well, he may have done New York in short order afterwards to close out the majors. But Kipruto, yeah, he's won Tokyo. He's won Chicago. He's won Boston. And if he wins New York, that's 4. And that's also, I have to argue here, that's 4 with depth because that's Boston and New York, but also Tokyo and Chicago. So Tokyo, Chicago, known as 2 very fast courses. So for your time trialer, they both have pacers. They are in the conversation for running your fastest marathon in history, whereas Boston, New York, that's more of a tactical course. They're both tactical, both very tough courses, lots of hills. Kipruto has shown a lot of depth and variety, and he also didn't do too badly in the Olympics either, placing 3rd in the 2024 Olympics, which again, a very tough tactical course.
Yeah, so he's an athlete who can do it all. That 4th head on Mount Rushmore could belong to him eventually. He might be the front runner. I
think they're starting to chisel the chin in. They're they're working the neck and the chin for him on the side of running of Marathon Mount Rushmore. But we'll see if the nose and the face comes to full relief.
They got to keep it pretty broad yet because they might have to pivot and make Evans Chebet in the last second. So he's my other front runner for now. Also a World Majors veteran and who excelled at the World Majors, got 5 podium finishes at them. He won Boston in 2022 and 2023. Also won the New York City Marathon in 2022. The last few years have not been quite as fruitful, but he's been in the running for several other major marathons. You can tell that this guy is now hunting for blood. He's you say Hellen Obiri is great at press conferences. I'm there for Evans Chebet. I love the Evans Chebet at a press conference because, yes, English is not his first language, and it takes him a while, but it's the demeanor. He cuffs the mic like this. You hear a lot of the static on the microphone. He gets it close to his mouth, and I can't really make out what he says, but it almost sounds, and he speaks very, very low. And it almost sounds like, wow, how do you dare ask me this question? He's angry.
He's pretty serious, and he's a pretty intense dude. He's totally an intense guy. And he won back-to-back Boston marathons. That's no joke. 2:03 flat is his personal best. I will note that Kipruto, whereas Kipruto is on the, shall we say, exciting side of 35, Mr. Chebet will be 37 right around, I believe his birthday is November 10th, if I'm not mistaken. So he will be 37 right around New York City Marathon time. Nice way to celebrate your birthday is to win a marathon major, and especially in a city like New York, take yourself out for a nice dinner afterwards. But that will remain to be seen. I'd say the other top contenders were doing Abdi Nageeye of the Netherlands dirty here because he won the race last year in commanding fashion. He looked excellent in the win. And the guy's got a silver medal from the 2021 Tokyo Olympics as well in the marathon. So the dude knows how to run a tactical race. A lovely human being. I got to say, he was one of the real bright spots in New York last year. He was just a cool guy to talk to after the race and the press conference and afterwards. Really friendly guy. He was like a really inspirational guy too. He's Somali by birth and has lived in the Netherlands for a number of years and represents the Netherlands internationally, and kind of came in with a chip on his shoulder into New York. He was like, I know nobody thought I was going to win this race. I knew that I was not going to be a favorite talked about at all going into race weekend, and that fired me up, and my training was going amazing, and I wanted to win badly. He's an NN running athlete, the running group made famous by Mr. Kipchoge, and a Nike athlete. Might be wearing those, whatever the prototype Nike super shoe is that we suspect might show up in the fall, because they're long overdue for a new Alpha Fly for sure, or something else. So he is somebody to keep an eye on. 2:04:20 is his personal best. Deresa Geleta of Ethiopia, who was second in Tokyo this year. He was fifth in the Olympics, and he's the seventh fastest of all time, 2:02:38 guy. He's never really won anything huge. Like, he's never taken home a major title. So this could be his moment.
Yeah, he's the fastest runner that people have never heard of.
Yeah. And then Mutiso Munyao, who you mentioned earlier, is a 2:03:11 guy. He won Boston in 2024 and came in third in, I meant to say London in 2024. And he came in third in 2025 in London as well. So he's more of a time trialer, I think, but is a dangerous character here.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of debuts to talk about.
Americans. I'd say the men's American race might not be as deep as the women's American race, but it does contain a few intriguing characters. I've been waiting for Joe Klecker's marathon debut. A little on Joe Klecker. He runs for On. He ran for the Colorado Buffaloes in the NCAA, where he was a stud. But 2025 has been tough. So this year's Houston Marathon and half marathon. I was there. I was taking in the press conference stuff, and there were videos about this. There was a lot of hype around the American race over the half marathon and the battle between Joe Klecker and Conor Mantz. And at the time, which let's remember is only 7 months ago, it seemed like an appropriate conversation to have. Which one of these American half marathoners will take a true assault at the record and beat it? And I remember, and we talked about this in our Chicago preview as well, because Conor Mantz is doing Chicago. At the press conference, Klecker seemed somewhat confident that he was going to take a run at that record and maybe beat it, whereas Mantz was a little bit more muted about it, and he was maybe a bit more tentative in his approach, or his verbal approach. But then obviously the race happens, Mantz destroys the record, Klecker's nowhere to be seen, and that was the beginning of a trend for Klecker in 2025 that just saw him not quite perform at the level that maybe onlookers thought he could, and probably he thought he could. He was 6th at the BAA Boston 10K, finished 10th at the Beach to Beacon 10K, 6th at Boulder. And let's remember, these are all races where a Klecker at on his A game could potentially win. And so he hasn't quite been where Mantz has been. And now I'm wondering if, and this happens sometimes, I don't know, I'm just speculating, maybe his training has been different this year in preparation for a marathon. Sometimes when you're training for a marathon, you do sacrifice speed a little bit, in lieu of mileage. And I'm wondering if these, say, maybe B races for Klecker were just preparations for something great as a marathon debut. So I'm excited to see him do it. I'm curious to see what he can do. He's perhaps the favorite for the American victory. However, this won't be given to him whatsoever. There's Hillary Bohr, who's racing too, who's having his marathon debut at 35. He's had this nice long track career as an international caliber steeplechaser. He's got a personal best of 8 minutes and 8 seconds in the 3,000 meter steeplechase, which is truly world class. He is Kenyan born, became an American citizen by enlisting in the U.S. Army, which is somewhat common with Kenyan distance runners. Yep. He's got and now has 7 national championships from the 3K steeple to the 10 mile, now finally moving up to the marathon. So not sure what he can do. I think I think it's exciting. And then there's Reed Fischer, who also will, just like Susanna Sullivan, will double back after representing America at the World Championships in late September, will return and race in New York as well. So
that's tough.
That's tough. It's going to be a game of how much does he have left in the tank?
Yeah. It's really, I think it's really difficult for a marathon runner of any ability level. We're talking recreational all the way up to an elite athlete to try to do 2 marathons in one season and stretch out a big long season. Think about how many weeks of training that is, right?
Yeah.
Because World Championships, you want to go into that with a full season of training. You want to do, let's just say 16 weeks.
Yeah.
You want to do 16 weeks, a 16-week build. And then you know that you've got, what is that? 6-8 weeks later, you've got the New York City Marathon looming over top as well, over your head as well. That's a tough ask. I think that a lot of these, especially the American elite athletes, they get appearance fee money for this. So it's a payday for them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely motivation, especially from a New York. Like New York, from my understanding, pays out pretty well to especially top American athletes to get them to come and run this race. One little note on Joe Klecker. In our research, Joe Klecker's parents, both top level marathon runners back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Barney and Janice Klecker, first of all, those are elite American parent names right there.
Barney Klecker.
Janice.
Just sounds like he can fire up a barbecue.
He's like a character in a novel. Barney Klecker. He won Grandma's Marathon in the late 70s. He's like a 218 guy. And Joe Klecker's mom represented the U.S. in the 1992 Summer Olympics in the marathon. So, and I think the 50K American record. So,
oh wow,
that's like some serious genes you're working with there, some serious provenance, and also a lot of pressure too. Like you get are you getting calls like the day before the race, and it's like dad's on the phone, and he's like, "All right, Joe, here's what you're gonna do. The last 10K, this is how you're gonna. I ran New York back in '82, and this is how you run it." And then like mom is like, no, give me your phone. Like put him on speaker. And then she's like giving him sage advice about pacing and, even to negative splitting. Like it'd be a lot to have 2 former elite marathon runners as parents.
Yeah. If anything, maybe you want like one just for the genes and then no conflicting advice. Like you have the one parent who's just the hard ass and gave you the fast genes, and the other one's just supportive. Like, oh, we love you. No matter
how you do in New York.
Yeah.
It's okay if you DNF your marathons and run and your personal best ends up being slower than both your father and I. That's all right.
It's like the angel and devil on your shoulder.
Yeah. No. Okay. So let's pivot to the big questions here. We will do our way too early predictions for New York, just as we did in Chicago, for Chicago in a second here. But I got a couple of looming questions for you here that we sort of like danced around in this conversation. What do you think is the more fascinating, hyped, excellent, exciting race? Because both fields came out within a few days of each other, the announcements. Which one are you more excited for, Chicago or New York?
Ooh. I think the Chicago women's race is going to suffer because of this whole Chepkirui thing. I think on the women's side, New York, 100%. On the men's side, I think it's comparable. I think both races have the hot ticket names. I think the American race is better on the men's side in Chicago, but I think overall, New York is slightly more hype, but not by much. Not by much.
I disagree with the men's side. I think that the Chicago race with John Career versus Jacob Kiplimo is just an absolutely sick matchup between 2 guys that are like, one is peaking, the other is emerging. Who knows what the split is going to be in the first half? It could just be like, get to your phone, get to your television. You have to watch the second half of the Chicago Marathon because you could see something absolutely extraordinary. I don't think we're going to see that in New York, although I think the race itself will be a lot of fun. But I agree with you on the women's side. I think that New York, in terms of top level storylines with with Obiri versus Lokedi is a great matchup. And then I think the American side is great too on the women's side as well. Do you think, because I'm looking at this list here and they've deferred, New York Roadrunners have deferred to going with past champions as kind of their bread and butter of their storytelling here on the elite field. Because when you think about an elite field, you're thinking about intrigue, sizzle, storylines, entertainment, sports entertainment. You're thinking about the press release, the PR, the athletes you're bringing to the race to talk about the race, to talk about running, to talk about the marathon, right? Talk about New York. So you're deferring to past champions, legacy, been here before, know the race, know the city, and able to speak that language of the New York City Marathon over just throwing a boatload of money at Kipchoge to come for the first time, or getting Jacob Kiplimo to come race instead of doing Chicago, or pulling John Career away from Chicago. And then on the women's side, of course, you're deferring more to your last three champions versus maybe Tigges Dissefa, who is, let's say it now, this is a hot take, but kind of the world record holder again.
Kind of the real world record holder. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think it's a better play for New York to bring these past champions and kind of set the stage with them? Or is it a mistake not to bring an A-lister in?
Yeah. I do, and I kind of mentioned this before, I do think that there are two little worlds that are cleaving inside of major marathoning, the time trialing world and the racing world. And I think they have the hot ticket, say on the women's side, they have the hot ticket names for, in that racing world, Lokedi, Obiri, even Chepkirui to an extent. I wonder if it was a mistake. We're talking about the records. 222. Is 222 going to go down? I would guarantee you that if Tigges Dissefa went to New York this year, she would destroy that record. Maybe they should have invested into that more.
And as proven out in Paris, which was a hilly, challenging championship-style race, no pacers, of course, Tigges Dissefa finished second. It looked awesome the entire way through, right?
Mm-hmm.
So battling it with Sifan Hassan all the way through.
And maybe that's the secret sauce as well. You don't only bring Tigges Dissefa, but you also bring Sifan Hassan, who's doing Sydney this year.
Chef's kiss, my friend. That is the race I wanted to see. I didn't even think of this. You're totally right. Why is Sifan Hassan running? This is Sydney Marathon. I know it's the first year that it's a World Marathon major. They must have paid her a boatload of money to come run that race, because she and Tigges Dissefa, they should be in New York racing the New York City Marathon. Like that would have been absolutely like blockbuster, like must-watch racing. Alas, we did not get that. That said, still a really strong field overall, and I still think the Sharon Lokedi-Obiri duel will be super cool and will make for like incredible clips to watch afterwards if they do their thing again, which is duel it out in the final mile of a really tough marathon. Who do you think is the more intriguing figure between Sisson, O'Keefe, and Molly Seidel? Three very different subplots there with three top American women. Sisson, of course, the American record holder, still feels really very much like she's in her prime and capable of maybe even doing something really special. O'Keefe, as you mentioned, had that huge breakout in the U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials, winning it out of kind of nowhere last year, and then had some very serious injury issues, and there was a whole controversy around the Olympics, her starting and all of that. And then Molly Seidel, as you highlighted, hasn't raced in 2 years, but is this not enigmatic, but this really compelling figure in American distance running. What do you think is the A storyline there between the three of them?
I think it's going to be Sisson. She'll have the most airtime. She is the American who has a chance at getting on the podium. I think O'Keefe and Seidel, we might not hear much about them during the race, and it'll be more of an after the race thing. You hope that they both did well, given that they both dealt with injury in the last while, though I might be surprised. Say Seidel is at the top of her game somehow and joins the leaders for much, if not all of the race, that will be the story. But I just think that it's more likely that Sisson dukes it out near the front. And, at the end of the day, we're in New York City. People want to see an American contending with the leaders. And so I think it's going to be the Sisson show, especially if she goes under that record.
Shalane Flanagan won the race in 2017.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
American runner. Maybe we'll see another American runner.
Can happen.
Okay, so let's do the way too early predictions here. Who wins the women's race overall?
As much as I would like to see Sisson pull off an upset, and as much as I think that a past championship means something, I think Lokedi and Obiri prop each other up. Whether they like each other or not, they make each other better. I think it's going to be one of them, and revenge burns strong within the two. Lokedi has the last win. Obiri was second. She's going to climb back on top. So I'm giving it to Hellen Obiri, that would be her second New York City Marathon Championship. And she won it in 2023. So yes, Obiri for the win.
I think after Boston this year, Sharon Lokedi has figured out Hellen Obiri and occupies a sizable piece of real estate in Hellen Obiri's mind. And I think Lokedi's coming in with all kinds of confidence. And I bet you she just can't wait for those final miles of this race. I'm going with Sharon Lokedi for the overall win.
Okay.
Top American on the women's side?
I can't pick anyone but Sisson.
I agree.
She's the poster runner for the Americans right now.
Solid race, maybe even might get on the podium.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, men's side, who wins?
The men's side is tough.
Mm-hmm.
It is tough. I'm tempted to go with Abdi Nageeye because he's figured New York out, but can I really go against Kipruto? Benson Kipruto. He's too strong.
Yeah, I'm going with that as well. I think Kipruto completes his quartet of marathon major victories, and I think he becomes a really compelling figure as, let's say, that Mount Rushmore, that fourth face on Mount Rushmore for all-timers. And I think it's actually becomes like a fairly clear picture. I think it's very, very clearly the Kipper, Bekele, Kiptum. I think Kiptum is there. He has to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm tempted to make the argument that he's the greatest marathon runner of all time, even just with the very brief resume that he had because of how stellar it was. Mm-hmm. But it's almost unfair to Kipchoge because of that. Mm-hmm. And then I think maybe your fourth person becomes Benson Kipruto if he wins New York. Okay, top American before we wrap things up here.
Hillary Bohr.
Yeah, I was Hillary towards that too. Klecker's like risky. No, I'm going to go with Joe Klecker.
Okay.
I'm going to cheer for Klecker. He's also an on athlete and coached by Dathan Ritzenhein, who also coaches Hellen Obiri. So he's going to be going in with a wealth of knowledge about the New York City Marathon. Can pick Obiri's brain about how to run the New York City Marathon well. All right. So as with Chicago, we will be in New York. We're going to be there in full force. I believe our entire team is going to be there in New York. We've got some amazing things planned for it. We're going to be there, I think, all week. New York City Marathon week in the beginning of November. I think we're also going to plan a live event. So keep your eyes peeled for an announcement, probably September, October, as to what our schedule is going to be like in New York. I would say the best bet would be to subscribe to our newsletter, our YouTube channel, certainly, and our podcast. And we'll definitely be sharing all the information about what we're up to in New York. A couple of fun things in the works. Can't wait to talk about them.
Yeah.
New York's going to be great. And as always, it's an incredible event. And I think the elite races are going to be absolutely killer. All right, Alex, we'll talk tomorrow on our podcast about we won't tease the topic tomorrow. So subscribe to the podcast, and you'll hear us chatting with our colleague Caitlin tomorrow.
Yep.
On Thursday.
Stay tuned.
All right. Thanks, Alex.